Monday, February the 10th to order. Mayor Lucy Tundreau is out sick this evening, so we'll move through the agenda as quickly as possible.
Chairperson?
Chairperson, correct. Is there not a Pledge of Allegiance on this agenda?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Mr. Deputy City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Board Member Galvin,
Here.
Board Member Stereo,
Yes.
Board Member Bien-Aimé,
Yes.
Board Member Keys.
Here.
Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Are there any additions or deletions to tonight's agenda?
Good evening, Vice Chair and board members. No, there are not. The agenda is as presented.
All right, thank you very much. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from our December the 9th, 2013 meeting?
So move.
Moved by Board Member Bien-Aimé. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Board Member Sterrill. I want to say councilperson. I don't know. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? All right, items for action. Our first item this evening is the 2014 board calendar.
Yes.
What is that?
Good evening. This item in the last meeting, this is not actually for an approval. We just wanted to present this to this board. You had indicated that you wanted the meetings to be the second Monday of each month. We wanted for you to at least see the dates so that you can see them as they will be for the remainder of the calendar year. Just to draw your attention, it goes, when it gets to June, you see it jumps to August, but that's just simply to say that there's a recess in August. But however, the July meeting, because of the recess, we will move that to the first Monday instead of the second Monday.
For which month?
For the month of July.
Okay, before the council.
Before you take the recess.
And
We're going to have council on Tuesday?
We will have a council meeting that Tuesday, yes.
Okay.
all right,
And
and
that would be the last one.
does that mean we're going to now start meeting monthly?
Yes.
Okay.
If we have item for the agenda, yeah.
Yes.
I might make a request. If we're going to go and have a standalone meeting where we have to clear our night to be here,
That was a bad, that's a bad decision anyway.
yeah, I agree, but let's not then get in the habit of just canceling it, because I think we had a stretch during 2013 where we didn't meet very often. If we're going to be talking about renewing our CRA and wanting the county to support us, the fact that we're not meeting, I think, undermines that. So let's make sure we have agenda items, because we've got staff members working through the month. Let's talk about whatever it is that we need to talk about, and only cancel if there's just really some overwhelming reason to do so.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Yes.
My first comment for the first time is not they don't have anything to do at the interim administration point of view, but it's just that they don't have any item to take decision on. And I think that when we make the decision to separate the CRA from the council, that to me that was an emotional action, because I think that was the first meeting for the year with the new council, and it would happen during the budget. And usually with the CRA, even when we had a lot of money, the budget season, what we used to do is to have special meetings to discuss the budget. But however, because that we go over time, it's lap on the council meeting time, so we felt that, oh my God, that's going to happen all the time. It's not. If we take the history of the CRA, usually we only have one item per agenda. And having us cancel or clear all agenda on Mondays, which we're probably going to be very upset with staff thinking that they're not doing their job because they're not bringing us item. To me, just because they don't have agenda item to discuss. So I would suggest that the best things to do, because if we're gonna meet on Tuesday anyways, even if we don't have anything just to see how the CRA is doing, we can come an hour before then. But to come just on Mondays, or having even the constituent clear their schedule when we don't have anything to discuss, I think that was a bad decision. But so I still have my motion, if you guys allow me to take it back on Tuesday. But if we have any long item, or if we have the budget to have a special meeting on Mondays or any other days, but just to have the CRA from now on every Mondays, knowing that we're not going to meet every Mondays, I think it's kind of like dysfunctional. But that was my
So
take on that.
the board member made a motion to move our meetings back to the, what were we doing, the second Tuesday of every
Once the
month?
second Tuesday every month, except with the amendment that if there is a long item, that we call a special meeting for the CRA, which we're entitled to do.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I would second that.
All right. Thank you, council. Board member Keys. Anybody else want to discuss this item, moving it back to Tuesdays?
I will not be in favor of that. And the first time when we vote on it, it's because when we have our council on Tuesday, sometimes we have so many appointments and coming on Tuesday. I think it's better for me to be there on Monday before council, and the next day I know I have the regular council meeting instead of having the CRA and at the same time. And I'm not in favor of that.
Anybody else wish to discuss the matter?
I still stand.
All right. The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor of moving our meetings back to the second Tuesday of every month, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Measure passes 3 to 1.
1.
And now we move on to agenda item 2, extending the life of the CRA process. Mr. CRA Director.
Yes, we asked Mr. Zelkowitz to give this presentation so that this board would understand that we are actively moving forward. So we wanted him to discuss the redevelopment plan and the what it would mean with the amendment and the extension, because this board will be actively moving forward. We have the budget set, but it's very important that we get this last component done, being that we will actively be doing this over the next few weeks, including presenting our budget. We wanted you to understand what these activities involve and what would be required of us. The consultant is out of the country, but
That's what I was about to ask.
yes, Mr. Dr. Schnittman is out of the country, but because of the fact we're going to be presenting our budget and we're actively moving forward, we wanted to have that at this meeting because this is crucial. So I turn it over to our CRA attorney, Mr. Steve Zelkowitz, who's going to do a presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Executive Director. I've passed out copies of a PowerPoint, and with your indulgence, I'm going to go to the podium and present that to you. Basically, it is a presentation of the legal process to amend your redevelopment plan and extend the life of the CRA. Good evening, Chair and board members of the North Miami CRA. My name is Steven Zelkowitz. I'm your CRA attorney. Our consultant, Dr. Schnittman, is out of the country. He's in Japan, where he often goes and lectures on redevelopment and city planning issues. So in his place, and I can certainly not replace Frank, I can only take his place for the evening, I'm going to present to you a PowerPoint entitled North Miami CRA Redevelopment Plan Amendment and Extension. So the first question that we want to answer is why? Why do we need to amend our redevelopment plan, and why do we need to extend the life of this community redevelopment agency? When back in 2005, when this CRA was created, And Dr. Schnittman, excuse me, was its first executive director, and I was here as your attorney. We had a lengthy negotiation process with the county, including Tony Krapp, who at the time was an assistant county manager. CRAs are typically given a grant of the delegation of authority for 30 years when they approve their plan, but the county at that point only wanted to give this CRA 5 years. And the reason for that is they wanted to see a track record. They wanted to see you do some projects and get Biscayne Landing underway, and then they would extend the life of the CRA. We fought them hard on that. My position was give us the 30 years, and if we don't do anything in 5 years, then, we'll come back in front of you and we'll talk about it. In the end, as usual, the county was able to get their way. In our relationship with the county, we have an interlocal agreement that was done back in 2005. It's a tri-party agreement between the county, the city, and the CRA. And that is the agreement that initially said that we have only 5 years, which would have taken us to 2010. In the interim, when the CRA was contemplating the Pioneer Gardens affordable housing project, a line of credit was entered into and approved by the Dade County Board of County Commissioners, and they extended the life of the CRA at that point for another 10 years. So now we have a sunset date of September 30th, 2016. And that's how we got there. There's a resolution that was done back in 2006, which gave us the extension that is similar to the extension we're going to be seeking now with the county. The need to amend the plan itself, you're familiar with the plan. The plan is really based on the Biscayne Landing project. It was originally proposed back in 2005. We had a 1-for-1 affordable housing requirement, as you all may recall. That is all changed now with the new Biscayne Landing project. We want to talk about, after my presentation, perhaps some new projects. So in order to publicly fund those projects and have a plan that addresses our current needs, we would need to amend the plan. You need to amend the plan to extend the life as well. So what we need to do is basically go to the county, extend the plan, and amend our redevelopment plan. So then the next question is, how long can we extend our life for? Based upon the Florida statutes, we can extend the life of this CRA for another 30 years from the time we approve the plan amendment, or even another 40 years, because we fall into the category of CRAs that were created after July 1st of 2002. The reason for the 30 or the 40 years basically is if you're going to bond, and the typical repayment of a bond, the term is 30 years. So that's why they want to give you the opportunity to have enough life to repay a bond. So depending upon what projects we're going to propose, how we're going to fund them, when we go to the county, we're probably going to ask for another 30 or 40 years. So in order to get the life extended, we have to have some new projects. We have to have, a financing plan. And so you need to understand, which I'm sure you already do, basically what is a community redevelopment project. Basically, it's almost anything that serves a public purpose. For a CRA, these include the installation, construction, or reconstruction of streets, utilities, parks, playgrounds. You can have public-private type projects where you're going to participate in, let's say, a hotel development, parking garages, educational facilities such as the Johnson & Wales or FIU, and the private, some of the public areas of these private projects, such as banquet facilities, parking garages, lobbies, and other infrastructure improvements, can be paid for with your tax increment funds. We also can do what are called area-wide improvements, which you've done in the past. Your swale projects that we funded with the CRA funds in the past are also part of what the statutory scheme contemplates. So the question then becomes, what can't we spend our TIF on? So there's basically three things that Florida statutes say you can't spend the money on. One of those is the construction or expansion of administrative buildings for public bodies unless the taxing authority, which in this case is the county, agrees with the financing or unless the construction is contemplated as part of a community policing innovation. So in English, what that means is you can't use your TIF to build a new city hall unless the county says you can use your TIF to build a new city hall. You can use your TIF to build, let's say, a police station or a police substation or police-type facilities, because those don't fall in that category. You can use the TIF to build, let's say, a parking garage or something in connection with a new city hall, but not the administrative building itself unless the taxing authority agrees with you, and that is the county. You cannot use the TIF to fund any publicly owned capital improvements or projects if they were scheduled within 3 years of the approval of the redevelopment plan by the governing body. Now, in English, what that means is you all have a CIP plan. So if we approve this amendment to the redevelopment plan, let's say in June, if there are things in your CIP that are supposed to be done in the next 3 years, we can't use the TIF to fund those. The example that we had in the past that we ran into an issue with was your new water plant. And you wanted to use TIF money, you wanted to bond, but that was in your CIP at the time, so we had to wait. And lastly, of course, you can't use your TIF for general government operating expenses unrelating to carrying out the redevelopment plan. So in other words, the TIF cannot be used to pay the salaries, let's say, of city employees on city business. It can obviously pay for CRA employees doing their jobs, but you can't use it for general overhead expenses. So with that as the background, how do you amend your redevelopment plan? For us, there's a two paths we have to take. One, you have some statutory requirements under Florida law. As we all know, the CRA is a creature of statute. And then we have our process, our local process that involves the city, the county, and the CRA itself. So first, we'll just talk briefly about the statutes that you have to follow. Chapter 163, Section 163, 361, basically says you can amend your plan upon the recommendation of the CRA. So when this board says we want to amend the plan, we go forward, we adopt some plan amendments, we send them off to the city and the county then for approval. So this is the board that initiates the process, as you know. What we need to do if we're going to amend the plan to expand the boundaries, which is something you may want to discuss and talk about, and obviously extending the time certain, we have to discuss that with the governing body, which is the county. We're already doing that, so we're following the statutory requirement in that respect. If you're going to change the boundaries to the CRA, you have to do a new finding of necessity. The finding of necessity is the study that says this area that you want to include in your CRA is either slum or blighted. That's how we got to have a CRA in the first place. We had a big finding of necessity that was prepared. It said these areas are slum or blighted in accordance with the statutory criteria. And that's when we got to the county. They adopted that, they approved it, and you got your CRA. Obviously, you're going to have a public hearing, and that gets noticed in the newspaper. And then this body will approve the redevelopment plan amendment, and then, like I said, we send it off to the city for its approval. The process, the local process, is basically a 5-step process. You have this board, as I just mentioned, approving the redevelopment plan amendment. Then we send it to the council, where you all will sit in your role as council members and consider it. Then we send it to the county, and that's I think where the real work is going to begin. The county has something called the TIF committee. It's the Tax Increment Financing Committee. Every year our budget goes to that committee. It is a committee comprised of county department heads, such as Public Works, Planning and Zoning, Office of Management and Budget, and they review the budget or the plan amendment, whatever it is that affects the CRA. And once they approve it, they send it on. As you know, the county commissioners a number of years ago, created a committee system where everything goes to a committee before it goes to the Board of County Commissioners. Items that deal with CRAs go to the Internal Management and Fiscal Responsibility Committee. So once we go to TIF, we go to the IMFR Committee, and then we finally get to the Board of County Commissioners, who will then approve our amendment and our extension, and then we will be on our way. So with that in mind, that's the legal process that we have to go through. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on that.
All right, board members, any questions?
When do we do this? What is the timing for this?
The timing to do this is wholly within your discretion. I mean, if you're asking me how long it would probably take, I would think it'd be a 6 to 9 month process. I mean, the actual plan amended plan has to be drafted. Someone has to do that. You know, Dr. Schnidman has been engaged to basically advise you on, I believe, some, you know, preliminary matters, you know, and meet with the county officials and start the process. But the real meat and potatoes is the revised redevelopment plan. I mean,
We have to give Dr. Schnidman we have to vote to have Dr. Schnidman proceed?
the amended redevelopment plan is something staff could draft. It's something Dr. Schnidman could draft.
Well, I'm not talking about that. I'm saying, do we as a board have to take a vote to go ahead and ask staff and/or Dr. Schnidman to proceed with the amendment, correct?
Yes, I mean, I think what we'll hear perhaps from staff is that at some point we need to have a workshop. We need to discuss projects that would go into the new plan. We would need to discuss how we intend to fund those projects in the plan, public funds, private funds, combination. And then once we have a vision for what we want to do for the next 30 years, we'll have someone put pen to paper, draft that, and then we bring it back for approval.
Okay. Question to Mr. Johnson. Do we have plans to start working, to create this vision in a workshop? What is the timing for this?
Yes, well, actually, the fact that we're having the discussion tonight is a part of that planning process. We wanted to educate this board as to where we are. First of all, the prior board has already approved the process to extend the CRA. That was approved by the prior mayor and council. Now that we're moving forward to extend it, the next phase that we did is that we hired Dr. Schnidman, who would help facilitate the extension of that. What is being said here tonight, we have to have a plan. What is it that you would like to build? What improvements would you like to make? Because when we go before the county, we want to have, these are the projects that this board would like to see. So what Mr. Zelkowitz is doing tonight is simply saying, now is the time that we need to start to identify the next process is what capital improvement projects in the CRA would you like to see? I'll give you an example. Right now the CRA gets about $700,000 a year. If we got no other money, which it's impossible with the fact that we have Biscayne Landing is a part of the TIF money, that once that started, your CRA is going to get more money. But if we didn't do anything at Biscayne Landing, if you bonded out 500,000 of that 700 that we know we've been getting over the next 30 years, that's $15 million. Of course, you have to reduce it because there's interest that a bank would charge you. But that right there is already, we know we have at least a $10 million project that we should be identifying by the fact that we're moving forward. And of course, as we project what the new TIF money could be, we need to identify other capital improvement projects that we need to identify over that 30-year period. So if the CRA right now, if it goes up to $2 million a year, if you extended that for 30 years, that's $60 million of projects. if you were to bond that out, and a bank says, wow, your CRA is going to get $2 million for the next 30 years, and you go 30 times that, that's 60 million. You may only get really 50 out of that, but you need to, this board has to identify what projects you want to do. We have to start that process now that you're being educated tonight, because this board has to identify and approve. That is the amending of our capital improvement, so that when we go to the county, we at least, this body has agreed and identified what projects we're going to do.
So is that our next step, is to set a workshop to
Absolutely,
identify projects?
exactly.
Okay.
Thank you, Board Member. Board Member Sterling, you had questions?
Yes, indeed. Okay. Here's my concern. We need to identify project.
Correct.
I understand the process of bonding the $700,000 that we're having every year. And I heard that you also mentioned Biscayne Landing tax increment if it ever, never, ever, ever happened. Biscayne Landing is part of the CRA right now.
That is correct. In fact, that is the only part of the CRA where we retain the county's portion of the TIF. As you recall, there was a negotiation with the county on that as well.
Yeah.
You have geographically, I would say, probably the largest CRA percentage-wise.
And it's a problem for me. I mean, I have a problem with the boundary of the CRA, but take into consideration where the money is coming from, I don't think that we can get out of it. My concern is that not the CRA doesn't have money or bring money enough to make an impact, but it's just because that we have such a large CRA for the amount of revenue that we have, it's really, really, really hard to make an impact. But from what I remember, the reason that we have the CRA is because we know that Biscayne Landing was about to pump us a lot of money. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. But it's remained the same. The boundaries remain the same. So, go ahead.
In that comment, the strategy could be, if you have no Biscayne Landing, and which we do, but let's just say things don't materialize as quick as we want to. We know that sometime in the future it will. But just by itself, you know that without Biscayne Landing, on an average, the budget has been about $700,000. The market is coming back slowly. But so if you said, we don't want to do the entire $7, we want to do $500,000. The boundaries are what they are. This board could look at that as an advantage, because if you bond that money out, you can do your project wherever in that area you desire to do. You don't have to.
I'm going to jump in. Where is all this discussion of bonding of money coming?
It doesn't. It's just a forecast of what, the reason why you would.
Do I hear a motion to give staff authority to bond money during this process?
Well, we're not asking
not
to
there
bond.
yet.
We're asking
I'm
that
not
once
there.
we extend the CRA, I will be coming back to this board to ask you to give me permission to go out and find out how much money we could bond and what banks would give us money. Because
Why do we want to bond money? Why?
Because if you extend the CRA, which you have given us
Right,
approval
just
to
use
do.
the income coming off of Biscayne Landing to do new sidewalks, to do new projects. Why do we need to bond for construction? I don't
Yeah,
But from what I understand, you just, from,
Question posed by the chair. Why are you talking about bonding money this evening?
Theoretically, if you only got $700,000 a year, it shows very minimal impact to the eye. You're doing a sidewalk here.
But why would we spend more than we have? Why would we commit the taxpayers of this city to bond money to do projects that we don't have the revenue for? If we're only making $700,000 a year, let's only spend $700,000 a year.
Sure. That would be that would be a decision of this board.
All right?
But
The
again-
chairman is asking right now, is
Okay.
there a motion to give staff authority to move forward on bonding projects?
May I?
M-
Is there a motion? Seeing
Can-
none.
can-
We're not-
Is
we're
there
not
a
there yet.
motion? Is that, no. Because I'm not going to waste your time and our time with talking about bonding projects if we're not going to be serious about how we're going to pay for it all. If, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Director, have you had discussions with members of this board about bonding projects prior to tonight?
No.
Okay.
No.
So then we've
But that's
got.
how, that's how
Can-
CRAs work.
Can
I know how, you're talking about the gentleman who was here in 2005 when the CRA was put together. I've not missed a single meeting before or after that. I know exactly where you're coming from.
Okay.
I've heard many rumors that we're talking about bonding money to build a new city hall, that we're bonding money to, I mean, even today, Mr. Swerdlow called me today and asked me about bonding. I've not had any discussion with you about bonding.
Can I, can, Mr. Chair,
I'm
can-
waiting. Chairman is going to ask for a motion right now, or we're going to just turn the page and move forward. Is there a motion on the floor to allow staff to move forward with bonding of future projects?
Mr. Chair,
Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Seeing,
you don't on the floor. I wanna,
Seeing-
I wanna talk.
but I'm glad to cede the floor to you after I hear whether or not there's a motion. Is there a motion? Seeing none, no authority is granted moving forward to bond any projects. Chairman, Board Member Bien-Aimé.
Can I talk now? You just said, and I heard the attorney for the CRA said, in order for us to move forward with the CRA and asking for an extension, we need projects. Is that correct?
Correct.
We need project. And I talked to you before, and I talked to a lot of people about the CRA. 500,000 cannot do anything. We need money. And from what I've been talking to people, and Mr. Chair need to understand, you're not the only one and on this body and asking question and talking about bond, talking about other thing. I've been talking about that.
Do you realize that bonding means borrowing
I
money
understand
that we
what
don't have?
I understand what that
We can
means.
still do projects. We can still do sidewalks.
Mr. Chair, 500,000 cannot do projects.
But why
We
would you
need to
want
move the city forward. But that's not what we're talking. We're talking about identify projects.
Right.
Okay.
Housing is a
And-
project, sidewalks are projects, landscaping is projects. I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Chair.
Councilwoman Sterl.
Chair.
Councilwoman Sterl, you're-
Mr. Chair. We're talking about identify projects. Like
Yeah.
me, I'm giving you an example. In my district, by talking to people, a couple friends, a couple of people who understand the city, we've been talking about project for millions.
So
And
you're,
what I'm gonna ask the council is to direct the city manager and other staff member to find a way to bring us money in order to realize some of the project that I have. And maybe, I don't know, if you have project, you said 500,000 can do sidewalk, you said 500,000 can do housing. I have projects that cost more than 500,000. And I'm gonna bring it to the council.
So you're-
That's when you're not the only one and on that
But here-
body
here's-
and
here's what's-
about projects and about identifying money.
thank you, Councilman. I'm just going to call people councilperson. It gets too cumbersome. The problem with bonding is that we don't have an agreement with Biscayne Landing or Lita Partners currently. That project is stalled. When there's nothing happening out there, there's no more money coming to this CRA. If we want to get things moving, we need to make sure our staff as a city council is talking to Biscayne Landing and making some sort of arrangement. To bond projects means to borrow money. If we're going to borrow money, I'm not comfortable with that because we need to be spending what we make.
But there's no motion. Why are we discussing something that we didn't have we don't have a motion on?
Is there anything further, Mr. Zelkowitz?
Could I ask one more question?
Sure. Board Member Keys.
I just want to bring this up in the beginning of discussions, and Councilwoman Board Member Sterile, you made a comment you weren't happy with the size of the CRA, you were uncomfortable, and I was curious as to what your uncomfortableness is, because this is the only time we can discuss it amongst ourselves. But I want to bring up a point that we've been talking about Biscayne Landing. Our city, the city of North Miami, has some fiscal problems where we don't have abundance of cash. And we're talking about Biscayne Landing is our golden goose that once they start building, they're going to start producing improvements, and we're going to have tax dollars. If I'm not mistaken, all of the tax dollars from Biscayne Landing, and we're talking millions and millions and millions of dollars, that all goes to the CRA. And I have a problem with that because there's so many things that the CRA cannot do. So what we're looking at is all future tax dollars from Biscayne Landing doesn't go to the city, doesn't go to our operating expenses. None of it goes to a large portion of my district and Councilman Galvin's district. There's no money on the east side that is, or the properties that are not in the CRA for improvements. And I think we need to address the fact that all of Biscayne Landing's tax dollars cannot go just to the CRA. Our city needs tax dollars from Biscayne Landings going forward. And this is something we need to address, or I don't even know if I could be in favor of going forward with the CRA if we're not going to get any money to the city coffers. Because the city gives up the money, and even though we get money, all the money from the county, we're not getting money that we need to operate our city. And I think that's something we're going to have to address very soon.
Mr. Chair.
Absolutely.
Last question.
Councilwoman Sterl.
The internal management board, is it an advisory board to the board of commissioners, or
Yes,
what is it?
I think you were referring to the internal.
It's a long
Yeah.
sentence.
The Internal Management and Fiscal Responsibility Committee
Exactly.
is a committee comprised, and I apologize for not clarifying, of county commissioners.
Oh.
But it's a smaller committee. It's, I think, 7 of the 13, and they hear these items, and then they make a recommendation to either send it to the full board or not to send it to the full board.
So they're standalone board.
I'm sorry?
If they're standalone board,
Yes, they're a
they can
standalone
actually
Committee.
Committee.
of county commissioners. The county went to this system, I don't know, 5 or 7 years
But
ago.
I remember there was a time, I think with the budget, that they did not allow the budget for a very long time to go before the board, that we had to start lobbying.
Yes,
and go
Commissioner
before
Heyman
them.
was the chair of that board for a number of years, and
Okay, I thought it was a different board.
we had a committee, excuse me, and we had some issues there.
Okay. Yeah, that's all that I just wanted to clarify.
Can Mr. Selkowitz address my question about
What was
future
the question?
future taxes of Biscayne Landing, and the fact that all tax dollars were going to be going to the CRA and not into the operating expenses general fund of our city. So even those people and businesses over on Biscayne Landing don't get any tax dollars spent over there.
And it's a somewhat complicated question and answer. The way the tax increment financing works for CRA is you have a base year. Okay, so our base year for our CRA is 2005. So this CRA receives the increment. So when that tax amount from the year 2005 increases, you have your base year, and then in 2006 it went up. So this little piece of it going up comes to the CRA.
So it started at zero taxes.
Well, the city,
because
and
the
that's.
city owned it.
Well, the city owns it, but, you know, my recollection from the first lease, which I was involved in, I was not involved in the second lease, was there was a pilot payment to the city, a payment in lieu of taxes. I don't know if you're still getting that from Biscayne Landing?
I don't believe so.
Not for another couple of years.
Okay.
We're getting
Well-
we're going to, 5 years from now, we will be getting a small $1 million or $1.5 million rental payment. But we're talking millions of dollars in taxes.
Well, we can certainly, the increment, yes, so the answer to your question is the increase in taxes, if it was zero in the base year of 2005 and you increase it, then all of those tax revenues, actually, not all, 95% would come to the city,
Okay.
of the city side and the county side.
And then it goes to the CRA?
Not the entire, there's a portion that's come to the CRA. Is it the entire 95%?
For everything east of Biscayne Boulevard and west of Biscayne Boulevard, 95% of the city's portion of the taxes comes to the CRA. The portion for the area west of Biscayne Boulevard, that's the county's portion, gets refunded to them every year, because they were not about to give up pretty much all of their 60% of their tax revenue, because your CRA is about 60% of your geographical area.
But speaking just of the tax dollars coming, the future tax dollars to be coming from Biscayne Landing, actually the existing tax dollars, because we started at zero, all tax dollars from Biscayne Landing go directly to our CRA. Go to the city,
95% of
go to
them.
the city to be given to the CRA. So none of the tax dollars that we are receiving from Biscayne Landing now or in the future go to the operating funds of our city.
They shouldn't, but we do
95%.
blur the line. We do use CRA money to pay for half the cost of MoCA this, half the cost of concerts
Well,
this.
And what
when
about
when it
what
comes
about
time,
operating improvements in the non-CRA district? We have no funds for that.
when it comes time to amend your CRA plan, I would presume that there may be a negotiation between the CRA and the city as to how much of the increment that the city's willing to give up, so to speak, from
If we
Biscayne
plan to
Landing.
have a Biscayne Landing.
And you can certainly expect the county to also renegotiate their position as well.
But okay. In the extension that we're talking about projects, at the same time, can we change the boundary? Let's see, we have the Biscayne Landing. I'm just giving you an example. Let's see, we change it. Half goes to the city and half goes to the CRA.
Not the
When we're
boundary,
doing
but
the boundary,
tax.
if
Yes.
we do it,
Yes.
if we do the map.
But that's not going to be good for you, though. You're going to get less
No,
money.
the concern of Councilwoman Keys, if we use all that money, 95% of that money goes only to the CRA. If we change the boundary, let's see, we said a part, in the new map, a part goes to the CRA, the rest goes to the city.
What we're talking about-
Ideally,
When we talk
Whatever-
about the map, it's a map.
The money.
When
Yeah.
the boundary
But she
of
was
the
talking about
CRA is
spending
included in the
money.
No,
But
it's
count-
included in the map. No, it's included in Biscayne Landing.
Mr.
What I'm
Director.
asking is, we do the map, we do the boundary.
Oh.
Yeah,
Biscayne Landing.
exactly. If we do the boundary, now we know 95% of a part of it gonna go to the CRA. The other part, just because it's not in the boundary, this one gonna go to the city.
But it's,
Can we do that in the extension, in the plan to extend the life of the
We can do
CRA?
anything
Mr.
we want to.
yeah,
We
Mr.
as the
Executive
county
Director.
agree
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
Here's a question I'm hearing, and I've heard both my council members to my left tonight discuss moving the boundary of the CRA. Are you specifically, no?
No, that's not.
Okay.
It's why just the
No,
concern
no.
of Councilwoman Keys.
I
I'm sorry,
actually,
may I?
I'm actually, I take a
Clarify.
little bit exception with what Councilwoman Keys said. I actually like the boundaries of the CRA. It's everything west of Biscayne, which is an area that needs to be improved. That's why I've wholeheartedly, I think, almost
No,
always
no.
supported.
that was an introduction to, because if you remember, I always have problem with the size of the CRA, the way that we spend money. If we have $20 million or $5 million or $1, we tend to spend like a penny here, a penny there, then we never see the impact of the CRA. That was my introduction to understand that. Although that we have a big CRA, we cannot do everything in 1 year just because we have $500,000. We have to focus on, even with $10 million. You cannot say you have a CRA 95% or 60% of the city. You think that with $10 million, we're just going to cover everything. And I'm not fighting for a district. But if we have 2 or 3 big projects, we know that will benefit the city in a long term. So either my district or whomever, district it is, but it's a CRA project. So we have to focus on project. instead of saying, okay, if we have $500,000, spend 200,000 in my district, 100,000 here, 50 there, 50 here, so we'll never see the impact. So
But-
that was my concern in
Sure,
terms of the
but
boundary.
the only way to change that is to bond the money, to borrow from a bank, to get a bunch of money up front and make a
No,
big
I
splash.
totally
And-
disagree
And my
with-
worry is if we bond money, that something happens at Biscayne Landing and suddenly they're not providing the revenue stream that we want them to. And if we've bonded, we've committed to the banks that this is what we're going to do. So we're basically taking out a loan, and then if Biscayne Landing dies, if Michael Swerdlow rips up the contract and walks away and we're in court for the next 10 years, we've now bonded saying that we're going to recognize that revenue stream. I'm very, very uncomfortable that we would bond the project,
But it
that
was
we
not
would
on
bond
Biscayne
the
Landing, though.
project and then try to build a new city hall.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
and if we want to have a discussion about bond, where we're going to find the money,
Not have it now.
let have it another day. Then everybody, we can direct the city manager, we can ask,
If I'm
and we
hearing a
can bring
motion,
expert.
is there a motion to set up a bonding workshop with the staff, with the community?
I will-
Not for
I
the
will-
CRA,
I will-
about
let-
everything.
Let me say something, Mr. Chair.
It-
I have.
I
a
will move the motion.
Here's where
Yeah,
we're
there's
not-
a motion.
I-
You know-
Here's where we're not premature. I heard from Michael Swerdlow yesterday, and he was complaining about all the discussions that are going on about bonding. More than one person has come back to me and said, "Oh, I hear you're building a new city hall and you're going to bond the project to do it." I don't like that there are discussions going on that this board has not approved. If you want to bond and build a new city hall, build new parks facilities, whatever you want to do, get approval here first. We need to stop with the secondary discussions that are going on without this body discussing it and without us voting to approve it.
Can I ask some clarification?
Mr. Chair.
And if you want to clarify it,
Yeah.
get Mr. Swerdlow in the room
Sure.
so he can tell me why he was concerned yesterday about bonding
Sure.
when we've not ever had that conversation before.
Sure.
If there are no motions tonight to give you directions to bond, I consider this a moot point. We need to not be here
Okay.
still tonight talking about issues that haven't been approved. So I'll ask one more time. Is there a motion to give staff approval to move forward with discussions on bonding projects
That's the second one?
For the CRA
for the CRA?
or the city?
For the CRA, this
Okay,
is the CRA
no.
board. Hearing none, all future discussions until it's approved by this body should halt and not go forward. Am I clear? Is this body clear? No discussion about using CRA money to bond projects.
Correct.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
any member of the council is free to discuss anything with staff or anybody. Now, it's not official that this body authorize the city manager or the CRA coordinator to engage in any discussion about bonding. But me as a council member, I can discuss an issue like that with my city manager, with anybody.
You don't have to
So
ask
you,
permission.
but you,
It's two
you
different things we're
understand
talking
why
about.
then, you understand why then we're sending mixed signals. If we're saying there's to be no discussion because there was no motion and was no vote, but you can have the discussion.
No, Mr. Chair, there's something. I've been talking about bond, not for the CRA.
Okay,
I'm talking
but
about the city.
All I'm talking about is the
Okay?
CRA.
No CRA.
The CRA.
No, I'm not talking about the CRA. I wasn't talking
like I
about
said,
bond for the
Mr.
CRA.
Swerdlow called me yesterday complaining about the CRA money being bonded, and he said, "But I don't even have an agreement with you. How can you be bonding CRA money when you?" So
Oh, I don't know where you got that from.
I
Okay.
think our
I don't know where you got that
I
from
think our
about the
experience with
CRA.
Mr. Swerdlow should be weighted accordingly.
I just want to make it abundantly clear that this CRA is not in the process of
Bless you.
not in the process of discussing bonding CRA money for anything at this stage.
Mr. Vice Chair, I have to say this to you. My position as the CRA director is to present what Mr. Zelkowitz did. In order for us to have capital improvement projects to identify, during the extension of the CRA, we have to identify projects. And looking at how CRAs work, and looking along the spirit of what Board Member Sterl just stated, the city, without Biscayne Landing, has been getting several $100,000 a year. If we want to be effective, we can do it two ways, which I will come back to this board and present to you, whether it's in a workshop of your possibilities. Here are your projects. You could take 500,000 and you can go 100 this district, 100 that district, 100 that district, and these projects for CRA won't get funded. Or here's another method of doing it. Fairly, it's my fiduciary responsibility to let you know of all the possibilities. So although we're not discussing bonding, I will let you know all of your possibilities. And I will tell you that traditional, when you extend a CRA, without Biscayne Landings, you're going to get several $100,000 a year. And I'm going to let you know what that means and what you can and cannot do with it. To give you all the information. I will be coming back and asking you, here's what your avenues are. Would you want me to explore it, or would you not want me to explore it? I have to do that in some sort of date to give you all of the information. So no, it hasn't been discussed for CRA, but I will tell you, when you extend the CRA, and if you have no Biscayne Landing, you have an opportunity to get several $1 million. I have to come back to you and let you know. You could either find one project like Board Member Sterl said,
So I'm
or you
confused.
can continue to spend it in each district.
If
But it
Biscayne
will be
Landing is
yours.
dead and gone, if
Sure.
Biscayne Landing is frozen for whatever
Yes.
reason for the next 5 years.
Yes.
You're saying that there's a way that this CRA could still realize money.
We do every year. We haven't had Biscayne Landing, we still get several $100,000 a year.
We have the Oaks.
Well, okay, I'm not trying to be particular about the Oaks versus Biscayne Landing. I
It's not
consider
the
it
Oaks.
one same project.
Yeah. Without Biscayne Landing,
The county.
what we've been acquiring
Right.
without Biscayne Landing is several $100,000 a year.
Okay, so the several $100,000 a year that we will continue to recognize, even if it's frozen worst case scenario, how would we then be able to get more money off of that?
Because what I would then come back, once you do capital improvements, I would say, if you're getting 500,000 a year, because what the CRA is now, the situation is, this board says, we're only getting 500,000 a year.
Right.
If you extend the CRA for 30 years,
You'd
and
borrow against that money.
you can take the 500.
Isn't that bonding?
That's bonding. So
Okay, so you're having discussions about bonding, but you're not anymore. No more CRA discussion about bonding. No. Here's the thing.
You having
If-
the conversation, nobody else. You ask me a question.
But
You
that's
having the discussion.
that's the thing. He's telling me we're not going to have discussions about bonding, but then he says he's planning to have discussions about
How about
bonding.
projects you want to?
Okay.
He said to you.
Then please, Mr. Manager, if you're going to borrow against the revenue, how is that not bonding?
Vice Chair, what I'm simply saying is that I will, at some point in time, have to let you know what your options are. What is the desire of this board? Do you want to take that money and just spend it in each district every year where you see very minimal impact, or do you want to do something big? And I would let you
So
know
you're
what
saying,
those
do we want to
options are.
spend more than we make, or do we want to spend what we make?
Whatever that we want to do.
No, it's project. We have to when.
This is
Options.
such a leading set of questions.
It's just simple options. I have to give you what your options are.
But if this body is not giving you permission tonight to discuss bonding, to go anywhere further with bonding, stop.
Mr. City Manager.
The direction.
Yeah.
Look,
That's clear,
when,
that's clear.
when the-
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, yeah.
That's clear.
Okay.
Okay. So let's.
Okay, Mr. City Manager, a question. Now, in order to move forward with the extension of the CRA, one of the main issue now is for us or you guys to identify projects. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's it.
Correct.
But only projects that fall within the amount of money that we're going to make. So if we're only going to make $500,000 a year for the next 10 years.
No, that's not.
Yes, yes. Again.
We're talking
Again.
about projects. We're not talking about fund.
Right. Yeah, no. You can't talk about projects without funds.
Exactly. When I come with the projects
Right.
for the city,
Look.
then the city manager gonna tell me whether or not we have the money.
May I, Mr. Chair?
You can have all those discussions you want, but do not have any discussions about bonding CRA money against borrowing against the
that's what you
CRA
said,
money
so it's okay.
until
Okay, it's
this
fine.
body gives you that
It's fine.
direction.
It's
That's
fine.
what I understand.
That's fine.
I
Yes.
understand
That's
that
fine.
clearly.
Yeah.
Chairwoman
Okay,
Sterling.
that was
Who's
fine.
gonna?
Chairwoman
Okay.
Keith.
I just want to go back and be redundant,
No, seriously.
that I'm concerned that we get no tax, the city receives no tax dollars from Biscayne Landing in the future to operate our city. This year, okay, we sold this, we got $20 million. We've used about $3 million this year to balance our budget. Our budget had a shortfall. We took Biscayne Landing money and we balanced our budget. I believe you used $1.5 million or so last year to balance your budget. We are almost out of that money. There's $2 million left. After next year, if we use another $2 million, there's no more money for another few years from Biscayne Landing. We are not going to be able to balance our budget.
Really?
That's why we
That
need.
is correct.
That's
We've
why
been
we
using-
need to identify the money and identify
but
some
the right-
strong project for
Okay,
the
but
city
you've got
instead of
to,
wasting that money every year.
The
but
city
if all,
needs to stop dipping into Biscayne Landing money to balance its budget. The city needs to be
But
from
we-
the city, and the CRA
Okay.
needs to be from the CRA.
But Council-
I'm tired of blurring the lines.
do you
See
not think we
domestic
should be
neg-
getting tax
None.
dollars from Biscayne Landing?
No,
Ever?
the CRA money should be going, the CRA money coming off of Biscayne Landing. I was here, 2005. The CRA money coming off of Biscayne Landing was supposed to relieve the slum and blight in the CRA district, which is west of Biscayne
And no
Boulevard.
tax dollars.
Nothing, zip, zero, nada. We've gotten lazy. We balanced our books by reaching over across the line. We need to stop that. No more money for concerts, no more money for anything. This is my opinion. The CRA needs to fund projects in the CRA, whether it be housing, whether it be landscaping, whether it be sidewalks, whatever, and the city needs to fund the city. No staff members, no projects, nothing blurred.
I would take exception because when we have
Are
Biscayne
we
Landing,
having budget?
no, this is important because this is the tax dollars and this is
We can
going
discuss
forward.
that tomorrow night.
No.
We have council tomorrow.
But this
That's-
is the CRA money, and you're saying you want every tax dollar to go into the CRA for projects. But when Biscayne Landing is built, and we have another 5,000 units, and we have all of these stores, we are going to have an impact. We are going to have more staff. We're going to have more police. We are going to have more code officers. We are going to have a bigger expense. And what you're saying is none of the tax dollars from there are going to operate that 184 acres.
If you
You've
want-
got to take tax dollars from Biscayne Landing.
If you want to talk about that when the project rebounds, then maybe you talk about it when the project rebounds. Right now,
Okay.
there's nothing happening out there.
But
So-
we're getting ready to redo our CRA, and this is the time to address it.
So I would say that staff should negotiate some wiggle room, that when the project rebounds, you've got the opportunity to address it. But right now, I just don't think money should be spent east of the boulevard.
I'm talking
now.
about, I'm not talking east of the boulevard. I'm
That's
not
the only
talking
area
improvements.
that's not in the CRA.
No, I'm talking about operating expenses of our staff, for the entire city. The additional staff and impact that Biscayne Landing is going to have on us, that is going to cost. I'm not talking physical
Right.
improvements.
But the CRA is small right now. The staff is small right now.
I'm talking
There's
about
no
the
reason
city.
that- let's
Our
say
city
in
is
10 years,
broke.
Mr. Prudent could theoretically be overseeing grounds crews that are cleaning up graffiti. He could be overseeing any number of housing things. That there's more that the CRA can do. I don't want us to take CRA money and have it paying for stuff that's citywide. I guess we see the CRA a little differently, but I'm
I think we
Which
did.
item is that?
It's two things we're talking about.
it's not on the
Councilwoman Keys
It
don't
is-
want
it is-
all the money from Biscayne Landing to go to the CRA.
Correct.
This is what it is.
We need some of those tax dollars to
To go
go
to
in
the
our general
city.
fund to do our operating.
How can we do that?
Ch-
Can we just change
Yes,
that instead
Chair.
of 95%, say 50% goes
Yeah.
to the CRA, the other goes to the city?
Board Member Bieneme, we do that now. What happened is back a few years ago, and the CRA would continue to do that, is that once the CRA, we found certain things that the city was paying for, the CRA started to pay for. And believe it or not, that reduced the general fund budget. And once it does that, that does leave money for areas that are not funded by the CRA.
But you have to be very careful, because the county is very strict on staff. Well, we've had to back off because,
You're absolutely correct. That's why, because they wanted to see more brick and mortar. But if your CRA is up and going, and if it's doing what it's supposed to do, it relieves your general fund.
Right.
Because the other boundaries are surviving off of your CRA, which then leaves your tax dollars that you're now getting in for your areas that are not covered by the CRA.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
So-
if I understand, like, let's say we need sidewalk, instead of using the general fund to do the sidewalk, CRA do the sidewalk. It's
That's-
it's still the city.
And then the money that would have been spent general fund for
Fund.
those
Correct.
sidewalks is now freed up for non-CRA areas.
Areas.
Oh, no,
That's-
okay,
That was
okay.
the beauty of
It's
our
look like it
CRA
just-
and
That's
why it
correct.
made so much sense 10 years ago, because we would use the revenue to fix up the areas that needed to be fixed up.
Okay.
And then other monies are freed up to spend
Sure.
non-CRA, which is
We just
essentially-
cannot use the money for public facilities like a city hall, things like that.
According to the law.
Okay.
And so what hurt everything was two things: the economy
Right.
and Biscayne Landing
Right.
not taking off. We do see a rebound.
Yeah.
We do see a rebound. So,
And
so this
to conclude,
item,
let's
the
conclude.
purpose of this item tonight was to
Give me a second.
basically, there's nothing to vote on, but we needed to do the presentation so that you can understand that in moving forward, it would be crucial for the county to know what projects we intend to do by extending the CRA.
Okay.
And this is
Okay.
the reason why our CRA should meet every single month. Let's not have a repeat of 2013 where we met 4 times. Let us meet every month. We clearly have a lot to talk about.
Sure we do.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion from the council?
No.
Is there any further discussion from staff? There's a motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh,
Please,
wait,
we
there-
have an,
the deputy clerk?
yes,
Not
we
yet.
have-
We'll do it next one. Yeah.
All right, motion made to adjourn by Councilwoman Sarah. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Oh, that was a long hour and 5 minutes. That's a lot of talking. Is that a good time? Gee, you don't know how to manage your time, huh?